Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pitstop podcast, the greatest podcast in the world. It's the last episode of the season, guys.
Yep, season finale. And we have got a very special guest. We're taking it right back to the beginning where we started, with our first ever guest being the last of the season. It's Will Buxton.
Hello, boys.
Yeah! Round of applause.
I'm at your house. This is weird. This is really cool.
You
nice gaff,
made
by
it
the way.
back on. Thank you
mate.
so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me. What a year you boys have had.
Yeah, it's been a wild year. We're definitely getting to that.
Who'd have thought at
Yeah,
the start?
I know.
I could be sitting here with a Valtteri Bottas tattoo.
I wish.
I'm not.
Jake never got his Schumacher tattoo.
No, I still need to get that. It was really expensive because I wanted to get his actual face, and someone said £500 for a portrait of his face. I was like, £500?
There is an old saying: cheap tattoos are rarely good. Good tattoos are rarely cheap.
Yeah.
So
I'm waiting until we get paid, and I'll get a good Schumacher tattoo.
Do you not think it would have been funnier if it was awful?
Yes. Yes. Did you ever hear? Do you know Dave Gorman, the comedian?
Yeah, the old bloke. Is it?
He's not. I mean, I think he's like a few years older than me. He had this brilliant thing. He did a couple of series where he went around the world doing challenges and stuff, and he found himself, I think, in Austin, Texas, and he wasn't let into a bar because he didn't have ID on him. Because you know how Americans are about ID. You can be 50, but if you don't have ID, you ain't coming in.
Yeah.
So he thought it'd be a really good idea. He took himself to a tattoo parlor on the street and got a Texas ID tattooed on his arm, and the picture of him is so bad you don't know it's him. And he had a big sort of ginger beard at the time, which he's subsequently shaved off, so it looked nothing like him, and it's there permanently plastered on his arm.
Yeah,
it's
they're
brilliant.
permanent.
That's what you need, a terrible Mick Schumacher tattoo.
You forget they're permanent. I swear every time someone gets a tattoo, they never actually think too far forward in the future.
I've got enough bad tattoos to remember they're permanent. Yeah.
Hang on, you've got some tattoos.
I've got quite a few tattoos.
You told us.
But none of them are bad.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I love tattoos. Love them. Got a few more this year. One on my wrist. Actually, that one was last year on my arm.
Were there any points this season you were worried about Valtteri winning?
Never in doubt, mate.
There was a few. He was qualified all right, and every time I'd say to Fab, "This could be the week. This could be the week."
Start filming.
So, there were a few moments where I was like, "God, why did you make that bet? Why did you make that bet?" But I think it was pretty safe.
I think we only actually saw you once this year, didn't we? With Silverstone.
I think we saw each other a lot.
We saw you in Barca.
Saw you in Imola.
Did you?
Yeah, but you boys have been so busy. We've crossed paths so many times this year, but I've been hurtling off to do an interview with somebody, and you've been hurtling off to do an interview with somebody, and it's been mad. You're just part of the furniture now, boys. That's it. Like, you're there so often. It's great.
It's nice to hear that from you. I was saying to Jake last night on the balcony, like, we've done our rookie season now.
Yeah.
Like, we're not newbies anymore.
No. It gets serious now. No excuses.
I think it was February the 24th this year that we had you on the pod.
Wow.
I think it was around then, and we're sat in our middle room. We did it over Zoom, and I'll be honest, when we did it, probably about 80% of the stuff you said we didn't even understand.
Where you at now? 75?
When you were talking about stuff about F1, like over Zoom, it's harder as well because you can't just stop them and get into conversation.
Yeah.
But now we've actually got you here. You've drove down.
No, pleasure, mate. It's lovely to be. I think you're in the part of town where Stanley Kubrick actually filmed Full Metal Jacket.
No.
Yeah, because he never
Really?
left the UK after a certain date because he got scared of flying. So he filmed pretty much everything in the UK. So the whole of Full Metal Jacket, if you look at like the training scenes, they're all left-hand drive markings on the road, so they're not actually in America. And all the bits that were supposed to be Vietnam and the big final battle in Hue was filmed in Beckton Gasworks.
Oh, mate, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool because it looked like a bombed-out city at the
Right.
time that they filmed it, and he flew in loads of palm trees and they planted them all and then just blew the thing up. And it's where Oasis filmed the video for Do You Know What I Mean?
They're actually
It's everything.
It's not just Formula One.
Formula One, boys. I have a huge knowledge of what went down at Beckton Gasworks. That's
They're actually filming some for Netflix over here right now. We got a notice.
Is it Drive to Survive?
Yeah, they're going to be here in 10 minutes.
No, I wish. Next year's the year for us to get on Drive to Survive.
Well,
We've been
they
calling
have
out
filmed
all
us
year.
a little bit, haven't they?
Oh yeah, that's it. Fab actually filmed for Drive to Survive.
Did you actually?
Well, not
We were
filmed
doing
for it.
we were doing like George, Checo, and Albon on this balcony in Vegas, and I was doing it and quite nervous anyway. But then Jake showed me back a clip, and there's a fucking DTS mic over my head.
Amazing. They get everywhere. You don't even realise they're there.
everywhere.
And then you stop talking and you're like, oh shit.
That's what I'm worried about.
What have I said?
We've been in the paddock a fair few times and been around people, and we've only seen the camera once. But there's probably multiple
They
times.
move around under the radar. You don't really notice them.
You don't know they're there.
No.
And that's the thing. Sometimes they'll catch like a little conversation here, a little
shit.
like that bit with Seb and Christian in the last series where Christian's like take a year out and then come home. How did they get like? They were there just for that little moment, that little piece of brilliance that just opens up an entire potential storyline of, God, could Seb have gone back to Red Bull? You know, and at the time, because they thought Albon was going to stay. And then obviously they didn't renew with Albon and Checo got the drive. But you're like, oh my God, like it could have happened. It could have gone back.
Have you been filming Drive to Survive this year?
Yep, all the way through the year. It's been good
you've
fun.
Been sitting in the room and doing your camera bits?
Yeah. Have to make sure I bring my top, the same top, to every race, just in case there's some time and I get called in to do an interview. So I'm always wearing the same top.
They do it at the race.
That's interesting. I was going to say I thought they'd do it at the end of the year.
No. Well, we do one at the end of the year to like tie up any loose ends. Last 24 hours with all of the team boss chat, I'll probably have to go in again and talk about that because we literally just finished doing our last interview session of the season, and I came out of the room and it was like phones back on. Oh, by the way, Jost Capito's left Williams and he's taken FX de Maison with him, and it's all kicking off. And then the next morning, Fred's gone to Ferrari, bloody Siedel's left McLaren, and you're like, this is nuts.
So they'll cover that in this year's.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how it would end.
They might have to biff off an episode about something else and then pull this in, because it's a huge, it's massive.
What's actually, I have to ask, right, basically we're working on a movie at the moment. We've been filming our whole year behind the scenes.
Cool.
And no one knows about it. So we've been editing that deep, like we're deep in an edit. It's a massive project. So over the last couple of days, I haven't even seen the news. I seen it all this morning, all the pictures of everything.
Yeah. So basically, Jost Capito has left Williams, and he's taken FX de Maison, who's the technical director. He's gone with him. So Williams now need a team principal and a technical director. Yeah, maybe. I mean, send your applications in.
I worked at KFC for 3 days.
You actually did.
Done. And the rumours were, because he's got a big background with Volkswagen and the VAG group, he'd be a natural fit at Audi. So everyone's thinking, he's going to replace Vasseur when Vasseur goes to Ferrari, because it was an open secret that Fred was going to replace Binotto once Binotto quit. Next morning, sure enough, Alfa Romeo say, we'd like to thank Fred. It's been a wonderful journey. Fred's off to pastures new. So everyone's like, right, well, Ferrari are going to announce him. Ferrari do announce Fred. And then the big shock that no one was really expecting was Seidel, however you want to pronounce it.
Adam Seagull.
At McLaren, suddenly McLaren have said he's off. So Andrea Della Stella, who was chief engineer, has been promoted all the way through the. He's been in the sport 2 decades or more. Used to work with Michael Schumacher and then Fernando and bum. He's the natural successor, so he's the new team principal at McLaren.
Okay.
And Siedel's gone to Alfa Romeo / Sauber to ultimately oil the cogs for the new takeover by Audi, because he had this, past with Porsche, which is part of the VAG group. But he's become CEO, not team principal. So they've still got to announce a team principal. So
that's
it's like...
So Sauber still need a team principal.
So Sauber still need a team principal. So it's all like everything got thrown up in the air. But apparently when Audi announced that they were coming back to Formula One, they went to Andreas as their first pick to be CEO. He told McLaren, look, I'm going to go to Audi. When my contract's up, I'm going to go in 26. But McLaren, rather than just sort of sitting there and waiting and saying, well, we know that he's leaving in 3 years' time, said, look, if you want to go now with our blessing. It's all good and you can go. So they've let him go.
Did they time all these announcements around the same time, or was it just coincidence that it all kicked off in the same day or same couple of days?
They'll usually speak to one another.
Like a snowball. One's got to lead to the other.
Exactly.
Same as football transfers, really.
And the driver market, exactly the same thing. You just need that one domino to fall, and then all the others go duck, 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 and everything falls into place. I
don't know much about Vasseur, to be honest.
Fred?
I don't know a lot. I've heard that he's hilarious.
Funny bloke,
and we were going to have him on the pod, and probably not going to happen now, is it?
Might not happen now.
No.
I don't know. Ferrari been really good this year in terms of like freeing people up, and like
Ferrari
Schwartzman
like
on, and you got to speak to both the boys as well, didn't you? You had Carlos and
briefly.
Charles on, and look, Fred's super cool, right? And he had a hard time at Alpha, taking a team that was pretty much at the back and rejuvenating it. And he's turned the team around. He's been primarily responsible for their turnaround, not just in competitiveness, but also in making them attractive to sponsors. And he's super fun.
Most successful season in 12 years. 8 years.
For Sauber?
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
And
throwing them back at you.
Look at that.
That's all I got.
See? We're pulling it down. 70% knowledge. It's where Fred is brilliant and where Fred's really well known is in the junior formula. So Fred used to run a team called ASM, which became ART. So they're in F3, F2, all those junior championships, Formula Regional, everything like that. And over the last 20 years, he's won 21 team championships and 25 driver championships with ART.
Oh, wow.
He's like super successful and he creates these amazing teams and everyone wants to work for him and he just gives people purpose and, responsibility and can just draw so much out of them. So he's seen as this brilliant team boss. Time will tell whether he gets the job done at Ferrari because he had a stint running Renault. But ultimately, there was him and there was Cyril. And there was a kind of fight to see who'd end up on top. And Cyril won the political fight. Mm-hmm. And Ferrari is 10 times the political hot mess that Renault is. So time will tell whether he can create something, solid at Ferrari. But last time Ferrari had a French team boss was Jean Todt. And they went on that unbelievable run of championship success with Michael Schumacher. So maybe not having an Italian in charge, having someone who's a little bit separate from the politics, will actually be a really positive thing for Ferrari. And Fred's wicked. He's super cool.
I think that's a big part of it. I think having that smile on your face every day when you go into work it's just going to make the whole team want to work for you.
Totally.
I don't know what Binotto was like, but when I said hello to him once and he looked at me and then just walked off. So.
Yeah, but how long is that smile going to last?
Well, this is the question, and it's like the highest pressure job in world sport.
Yeah.
And in many ways, like, can you ever win at Ferrari? If you don't deliver a championship immediately, are you on a losing curve, from the outset? And with the politics as it is on top, in the boardroom, are they going to give him the time? Are they going to give him the freedom to create a team in his image? And Formula One teams aren't like a football team. You don't just put a new manager in and suddenly the players start playing better and there's that immediate kind of boost that you get from a new manager. A Formula One team is it's a cruise ship, or a shipping tanker, and the team principal is the tugboat at the front. It takes an age to turn that thing around. It's not going to happen in a moment. So fingers crossed. But this might set back Ferrari 5 years. It might suddenly give them a bit of an injection and give it 2 years and they'll be back there. But who knows?
I feel like they're kind of clutching at straws a little bit. Like they need someone. So I don't know. I think he'll be a good team boss. I don't know all the ins and outs, but
do you want to know? There was a really great tweet yesterday with everything that was coming out with all the team bosses. Do you want to know who the team boss in Formula One who's been in charge for the 5th longest time? It's a bit of a random question.
Fifth longest
time.
Well, I wouldn't know.
I don't know what I'm trying to guess. Yeah,
it's Otmar, who's been in the job for 9 months.
And he's now been the 5th longest.
The 5th. So Christian Horner has been at Red Bull since the start. Then it's Franz Tost, who's been at Toro Rosso / AlphaTauri pretty much since the start. Mm-hmm. Then it's Toto Wolff. Then it's Gunther Steiner. Every other boss in the sport will either be in their 1st or 2nd seasons running a team.
So where was Gunther? Was he at another team before?
Yeah, in history, but he was obviously joined Haas at the start, so he was their team principal from the start. But everybody else, 60% of the grid, their team principal will either be in their 1st or 2nd seasons in 2023. Damn. That's mad.
That's a crazy stat.
60% of the grid.
Is Formula One always like this?
No.
Does stuff just change? Like,
no.
It's happening like football.
Yeah, but
I'm watching it like football transfers.
Because in the old days, Formula One was the team principals owned the teams. It was like a labour of love for them. But now, more often than not, a team principal is an employee of the company. So they mix and match and, people are out, people are in. There isn't anybody, well, apart from Toto, who's a part owner of the team, and I guess Christian to a degree, there isn't anybody who's the owner of the team. There's no one that's the sole owner of a team, like a Frank Williams or Ron Dennis used to be, or Enzo Ferrari or someone like that. There's nobody whose name is above the door of that team and is the team principal.
So for Red Bull, it's Helmut Marko.
No, now it's complicated. It was Mateschitz, obviously, ran the whole thing. Now that he's gone, they've split it into 3 different people running different aspects of what Red Bull is. Okay. So there's one guy who's kind of in charge of the motorsport side of everything, and then Christian and Helmut kind of the next level.
That makes sense. Yeah. What about, what does this mean for Binotto? Is he just out of the job?
Yeah, and he walked away, after, 28 years? Out of Ferrari?
28 years.
Man and boy. Yeah.
Damn, I thought he was new. I thought he was like a couple seasons in.
No, he was as team principal, but he started off, right down the ranks and rose through all the different ranks within the team, working on the engine side. So he worked with Michael Schumacher back in the day.
So he should know everything.
He does know everything. Yeah. But then there's that degree of, was he too invested in Ferrari? Was he too tied up with the history and the passion and the emotion and couldn't quite separate from, the mad politics at board level within the team? Do you need somebody kind of from outside the madness to come in and almost like a marriage guidance counsellor?
I think that is what
to kind
need.
of somebody from outside to come in and say, well, here's where you're getting it wrong. And this is how we need to sort things out.
Just from our personal opinion, I think the whole reason that Red Bull runs so well is because they hire like these young people who just got their finger on the pulse. Yeah,
Christian was like the Fred Vasseur of his day back in the day, because he ran a team in Formula 3000 called Arden. So Christian started out as a racing driver,
right,
and raced for Arden, and then became its team principal, and then brought all these brilliant young drivers in, most of whom were backed by Red Bull. So they had this association. And then they wanted to launch an F1 team, and they went, Christian's our guy. Let's get Christian in. And sure enough, absolutely brilliant. But you look at, of those 4 guys who are still in position, Christian, Toto, Franz Tost, and Gunther, 2 of them, Christian and Toto, have won every title since 2010.
Wow.
Which kind of, there's evidence there that stability works. If you give people the confidence and if you give people the reassurance, give them the budget, give them the tools to do the job, that stability... Like in any sport, the stability counts.
What about this new McLaren guy? Because he's got a job on his hands, having Lando and Oscar. You've got 2 young guys.
Yeah, and in many ways, he's kind of like a Binotto. So he's come through the levels of engineering and has now stepped up to team boss.
So he would have started as just like motorsport college or something. We'll have to get him on to get a full journey.
He was in aerospace engineering, and so he and then sort of rose up the ranks within Formula One, working at Ferrari, working at McLaren. Done almost sort of every job on the way up, and now he finds himself team principal. So he's he knows Formula One inside out, but it's that next step up. And it's interesting that people aren't very often brought from outside in, or even from other championships. Last time they tried that was at Alpine with David Brivio, who'd been brilliant in MotoGP, came into Alpine, lasted like a year, and then was replaced by Otmar.
I hope our listeners know these names that you say, because I just sit here and think, fucking hell, I haven't got a clue.
I'm sitting here, I'm like, what is this guy saying?
I'm sorry. God, we're still learning F1 and we're talking about MotoGP.
I need to rewind it. I'm sorry. But yeah. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be absolutely fascinating.
Yourself being in the sport for such a long time, then, what's your relationship like with these people? You say you're buds. Would you go out for a beer with Toto?
I've never been out for a beer with Toto. I'd love to go for a beer with Toto.
So would I.
I'd love to go for a beer with Toto. I think Toto's one of the most interesting people I've ever met. Like, he's so fascinating, and also just like super calm, really good guy, from everyone that knows him well. Like, really, really knows him well. Says he's just the coolest guy, just really easygoing and, great to chat to, I think. Toto seems like the kind of guy that, like, you ever had a problem, you could go to Toto and be like, Toto, what do I do? This is really stressing me out. And he'd be like...
He'd say 3 words.
Yeah, he'd be like, Will, what do you have to do? And we'd just, like, sit down, chill you out. You have to look at it this way. And then we'd go through everything. Yeah, exactly. And he'd totally chill you out. And you're like... know where I'm at now, Toto. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, he's like an uncle, isn't he?
I feel like he has control. Like, I feel like he's able to have control. He seems like you'd trust what he says.
Oh, he's got it sorted.
But I don't think every principal has that. And then I also think it's interesting that, like, there's so many people in a team. But I reckon a lot of them wouldn't want to go to team principal. They probably want to stay under that level so they don't get the shit if something goes wrong.
It's tough, isn't it? It's like lifting your head above the parapet.
Yeah, because someone faces the shit from everyone.
Totally. And then there's nowhere to hide then. And there's no excuses anymore. Like you and you're front and center of the press and everything else that comes with it. Anything that goes wrong, you take responsibility. And you look at Binotto, right? He could have dealt with last season in two different ways. The way he dealt with it was he said, we don't have any issues. Everything's fine. I think because he wanted to protect the team. He wanted to protect, the boys and girls working at Ferrari, because what had existed before under the previous manager, who was a guy called Arriva Bene, who was there was quite a toxic culture at Ferrari and it wasn't a very happy place to be. And Binotto had seen that and he went completely the other way, which was to put his arms around everybody and go, we're one team, we're one family.
Right.
I'm not going to blame everybody for it. And so by doing that, it almost made it look like he didn't understand or didn't appreciate that there were problems, like with strategy or pit stops or whatever. Whereas if he'd come out and said, all right, guys, look, we've got problems, we've got issues, but I'm not going to fire anyone over it. We've got to the end of the season to make it better. And then at the end of the season, we'll decide if we need to ring the changes. Perhaps that would have reflected better because people would have gone, okay, look, he gets it. He knows there's a problem, but he's going to give the guys time. But there was just, I guess there was just an impression or, it's possible to draw the line that if he was forever insisting there was nothing wrong when the entire world could see there were major issues.
He's a lunatic.
Well, no, just like maybe he doesn't see where there's room to improve, and maybe that was part of it, potentially from a board level. But now I feel for Mattia because he's a good guy, and he has turned Ferrari around from being a team that had all this money, all this history, all this potential, but no results because of this toxic atmosphere that was created within the team. He's totally turned it around and put them on the right path. Heaven knows what he might have been able to achieve in 23, in 24 if he'd been given the benefit of the doubt. Because I think they could have. I mean, God, they won races this year. They were fighting for a world championship.
Well, that's it, man. I think it's easy to bash him, but I mean, really, like you say, he has turned it around. They came second.
Yeah.
So, he's done a good job.
Yeah. Look, if they'd been beaten by Mercedes at the end of the season, then you could imagine the Italian press and everybody calling for his head.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone was calling for his head. So I feel bad for him. I really feel bad for him. And he's a cool guy. Like, he's a nice guy, and he's Ferrari through and through. You imagine you spend your entire working life, 3 decades of your life, working for the team you wanted to work for your entire life. You finally get to run it.
Yeah.
And then just as it's getting good, just as you have that little taste of, okay, we're on the march here, we're moving towards something mega, and 23 is going to be our year.
Yeah.
The pressure's put on. And he quit, but he quit with a push. He jumped out of the aeroplane, but with a mighty shove.
Surely this has been one of Ferrari's best years in a while.
Totally.
They've just been in a title battle. Both drivers have won races.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere,
and again, I pull it back to Jean Todt, who ran Ferrari back in the 1990s. He was brought in after a period where they were changing manager every, 6, 12, 18 months for years. And then in comes Jean, who'd been really successful in rallying. But he wasn't Italian. He was a French dude. And he was just like, right, what I need to do to make this team successful is build a wall between the bullshit that goes on at the board level and my team. And then I'm going to give everyone within my team a feeling of responsibility, and I'm going to empower them to make decisions, which is what Toto's done at Mercedes. Very, very similar setup. And then he managed to sign the best driver in the sport, which was Michael Schumacher, coming off the back of 2 world championships, and put him in a car which wasn't competitive. And at the end of 1996, Jean said, I will quit. And Ferrari went, no, you won't. You stay. 97, they didn't win the title. 98, they didn't win the title. 99, Mika won the title. And it took until 2000 for Ferrari to start winning drivers' world championships along with constructors' world championships. They won the double in 2000 and went on what was at the time the biggest run of success in Formula One history, only recently beaten by Mercedes. But that took time, and it took faith that he was going to turn the ship around. But it took him nearly a decade to do that. Mattia's had 3 years.
I think,
and it's kind of mad when you think about it.
Like, Mercedes didn't perform this season, but no one would have been saying Toto's got to go.
No, and also because they turned it around by the end.
Oh yeah, I think Mercedes will come real. I'm buzzing for next year. I think they're going to be seriously,
Jake seems to think next year
good.
they could be up for
my prediction is Mercedes
running for the
win
championship.
But it shows. So, this year they had the new rules and regulations around if you won the World Championship last year, you couldn't have as much time to develop your car as the teams that finished lower in the order.
Yep.
And now obviously there's a budget cap. So in years gone by, Mercedes would have looked at their car at the start of the season and gone, right, this thing isn't working. Throw money at it, throw development time at it, and then 3 races later, whap, we get to Europe, they turn up for the first European race, bam, they're competitive again. Couldn't do that this year. So because they didn't have the development time, didn't have the budget. So it took them almost an entire year, even a team like Mercedes, to get themselves back to a place where they were able to fight for race victories on merit. Which shows that these new regs might actually work in kind of pulling everything together. Because let's imagine Red Bull have a shocker at the start of next year. Not only do they have less development time because of them being world champions this year, but they've also now had it whacked down because of the budget cap thing.
But they kind of did develop this year because they weren't great at the start, were they?
Totally, but it took them longer. So it took they couldn't before. They would have just thrown hundreds of millions of dollars at it and had the wind tunnel running all day, all night, CFD on the go, until they fixed it. Yeah. But now because they had less time, it took them longer because they had to think really, really take the time to figure out, right, what's working, what's not working, how do we figure it out, where do we spend our money, where do we utilize our time? Whereas before there was no consideration on that because you could just throw everything at it.
There wasn't even a budget cap back in the day?
No. You could just spend. You could just spend.
I didn't know that. I always thought there was one. They had just reduced it.
No.
See, that's so interesting because now it brings the teams closer together, surely.
Yeah, more competitive. With enough money in the sport, sure, it is going to end up that every team will probably be able to spend the budget cap.
At the budget cap,
they will all be able to spend that.
So imagine back in the day, you'd have, let's say, a Mercedes or a Red Bull spending 500 million a season, and you had a Williams or a Alfa Romeo / Sauber who had max 40 million. So
really, was that the gap?
Yeah, so you're on like a tenth of the budget, and you're still competing within a second of those guys at the top, which showed the amazing job that they did.
Yeah, very true.
So
it is seconds, isn't it? It's like 1-2 seconds.
But in the old days, so the smaller teams would think, right, our car is here. These are the development paths we could potentially take with the car. But we've got to pick one, and the one that we think will deliver us the most improvement in lap time over the season, because we can only afford one. Whereas a Mercedes, a Red Bull, a Ferrari would say, there's 5 different routes we could take to improve the car. Let's take all 5.
Yeah.
And throw money at all 5 and then figure out which one of those delivered more performance and more lap time.
And surely the teams with more money, I don't know if they did, but did they ever buy ideas off other teams?
No, you're not allowed to do that.
Are you not?
Not allowed to do that.
I wonder.
They could.
I reckon it probably happened.
They could sneak around, couldn't they?
You could go and employ somebody from another team that you thought had decent ideas.
Which isn't what Fernando Alonso used to do.
Them in.
Or he used to bring parts of his teammates over to a different team.
So when Andrea Stella, who's now team principal at McLaren, he was at Ferrari working with Fernando. When Fernando came to McLaren, he brought Andrea with him because they loved working together.
Wow. There was a great, I don't know if you saw our episode of Mark Priestley, but he told a great story handing out the envelopes.
Yeah.
That was mind-blowing. I don't actually know if anyone really knew too much about that because after he said that, the newspapers were like, headline.
Yeah. No, it's kind of mad. That was how it was back then. And so the smaller teams fell further and further back. The bigger teams got further and further ahead to the point that you couldn't compete if you were a smaller team. Now with these new regs, the notion is it should close everybody up. And the teams who are better at spending money, who are better at utilising their wind tunnel time because they're used to having to make every penny count, theoretically should be able to make these new cost cap regulations work for them. That's the whole idea behind it.
Yeah, I can see where they've done it. I just hope it does bring the whole grid together and every other team can compete. I really want to see. We had Oscar on, and I really want to see Oscar in that McLaren smash it because he's an amazing driver.
Hasn't he got a job though?
I know.
But can you imagine the pressure on that kid coming in with everything that happened this year and how much he's been built up? And you're like, he's never even driven a lap in a Grand Prix. And already the expectation on this kid is vast, like possibly insurmountable. Like how does he ever reach the level that everyone's expecting from him.
Well, it was stressful enough him having to come here and set a lap on our fastest leaderboard because he had me and Jake to beat.
And to be honest with you, stressful thing.
Yeah, he rinsed you boys, didn't he?
Well, only by 1.8 seconds.
Oh yeah, but and look at that. He's exactly a tenth of a second quicker than Drugovich.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. So it is. Wait, is that a tenth or a hundredth?
No, it's a tenth.
It is a tenth.
Yeah.
I never understand how they work when they say that on TV.
So
I'm trying to figure it out.
The 3 decimal places afterwards, the first decimal place is a tenth, the second decimal place is a hundredth, the third one is a thousandth.
Oh yeah,
Maths.
Obviously, because there's two letters, 2 numbers there, 3 numbers there.
Yeah, so there is a tenth.
Maths.
Should have listened in school.
Yeah, once again, we should have just listened to Will.
Yeah,
He clearly knows everything. I don't know why
I want to know about our 3 new drivers. Well, we got Nyck de Vries, Sargent, and Piastri.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Sargent at all, other than he's American.
Yeah, he's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. Look, he didn't smash Formula 2. He's competent. He's good. He's American. He's one of those. He's kind of one of those guys who, I think, having flown under the radar and come in, could do really well. He could be a Latifi, who sort of similar kind of vein. Although Latifi did a few more years in F2. But he's solid. He's dependable. I think it with Logan. I don't think anyone's expecting magic from him. No one's expecting him to suddenly set the world on fire. So if he does, if he gets close to Albon, who we all know is phenomenal,
Yeah, Albon's been amazing.
Then it's big tick for Logan Sargent.
That's it. Oscar Piastri in a McLaren. Everyone's watching him. Everyone's got their eyes on him.
Everyone.
Logan in a
Drive Survivor's
Williams.
gonna be over
I
the
don't
field
think
then.
most people are going to be like expecting him.
So
There's less pressure.
yeah, Logan is completely the polar opposite to Oscar. You know, if Oscar isn't immediately on pace with Lando, could it be potential, oh, well, this kid's not as good as everyone thought? But for Logan, if he's anywhere near Alex, he'll be feted as doing this incredible job. And as for De Vries, I mean...
He smashed it.
What a champion.
He is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, he's genuinely phenomenal. Let's not forget, right? Formula 2 champion. He's a Formula E champion. Mercedes reserve driver. You get one shot. Right, one chance. He's bloody testing the Aston Martin on Friday morning, jumps in the Williams on the Saturday, out-qualifies Latifi, throws it into the points.
Unreal, isn't it?
Like, it was, and to the point that he needed to be lifted out of the car after the race on Sunday because he was knackered. Yeah, everything seized up on him. Like, he took that one opportunity and turned it into a full-time F1 drive. Like, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. And his job this year is basically go to AlphaTauri, absolutely destroy Yuki and create the foundation on which he obviously hopes next decade of his career in Formula 1 will be built. It's huge for him.
And not only did he beat Latifi, he actually scored points.
Yeah, points.
Which is massive. You know, it's not as if they were coming 1920.
No,
the guy's in the points on his first ever.
Yeah. It was mega, and but that's Nyck. Like, he's such a rounded, complete driver. He's phenomenal. And I hate all this chat like, oh, he was too old. He didn't make it, you know.
How old is he?
Like 28, 29, I think.
Oh, is he old? That old?
Yeah.
But everyone's saying, oh, he's too old. I hate that argument. I think you're ready when you're ready. Mm-hmm. Whether that's 21, 25, 28, 32, doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing that says... well, apparently, in our game, experience is a dirty word. You know? But... Nyck's raced at Le Mans. He's won a Formula E championship. He's a Formula 2 champion. Why is all of that a negative?
Yeah.
Just because he's not 21 years old. I love the fact that he's 28, 29 because he has all this experience. It makes him a better, more complete driver. He's ready and willing now and able to take his chance and make the most of it. Whereas a 21-year-old kid might have fluffed that opportunity.
Yeah.
And Nyck didn't. He absolutely made everything of it. And I love it for him. I absolutely love it for him.
The way I see it is almost like a chef. Like, he's gone and worked in a load of different restaurants, cooking different cuisines.
I like it.
He went and did sushi in Japan for a year.
Bingo.
He went to Italy and like hand-rolled pasta, and now he's at a Michelin star restaurant in London, and he's got all this skill set.
Bingo. That's exactly it, you know. And he's gone on MasterChef The Professionals. He's won it, and he's got his own restaurant now. It's mega, you know. That's it.
Speaking of food, the catering at F1's pretty unreal.
Good.
Oh
isn't
yeah,
it?
what a year! What a year! How's your year been?
Long. It's been great. It's been really, look, I love doing this. And it was nice this year. I got to kind of reduce the number of races I did.
Yeah.
So I did half the races on site. I did a quarter of them back at base doing commentary, and then I took a quarter off, which is great because I'm getting old. So it was nice to have a bit of time
Never
at
too
home.
old. Never too old.
No. Honestly, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought it was a great year. Like loads of interesting stories, loads of stuff going on in the background. Racing was good. Honestly, I loved it. I loved every single second of it. It's been great. It's been really, really fun.
It's been, when we first spoke to you, we'd never been in the paddock, or we didn't know anyone else in the sport. And it's so strange, the thought of like now we'll have so many mutual friends.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Like,
it's mad. But that's what's lovely with Formula One is it's a big travelling circus.
Yeah, it really is. We figured that out.
And
now.
you get to know people, and you're introduced to friends of friends, and then they're your friends, and just everybody that you meet along the way. And you get to the end of the year, and like you've met 500 people. Most of whom you know as mate.
Yeah, because no names. I'm so bad with names. I think, who was it? Someone said that they have at least 100 people. Red Bull have like 100 people on a race weekend, like just Red Bull alone. And you've got 10 teams. There's 1,000 people there for us to try and talk to.
Well, it helps that they have their name on their shirt for most of the time.
Yeah,
although I don't know if you ever heard this story. One of the first American Grand Prix, the governor of Texas was brought to the race and was told the same thing. Like, don't worry, most of the people have got their names written on their shirts. So he was introduced to Christian at Red Bull, went up to him and he was just like, "Hey Pepe, how you doing?" Because they were sponsored by Pepe jeans.
Oh my days, that's so bad. I knew that's what you were going to say. They were going to walk up to someone from Ferrari and say like, "Hey Shell" or something like that.
It was amazing, absolutely incredible.
Christian.
Yeah,
Pepe.
Christian, or Pepe as he's known to the governor of Texas.
That's hilarious. No, yeah, what year? We went on the grid for the first time.
Isn't that a buzz?
We saw you on there.
Yeah.
You were running around with the microphone.
Was I whirring
like
around?
you said,
Yeah.
every time we've seen you, it has been a flying stop.
It's crazy.
But that's the thing, when you're there, you're properly working. You're doing something cool. A lot of the time, we're just
Drinking.
hanging out,
Drinking.
networking.
But that's great because like you get to kind of immerse yourselves in it and enjoy the grandeur of it and the spectacle of it. And sometimes you do get lost in. You're so concentrated on work, you don't stop to appreciate how brilliant this is. And I every day I come into the paddock, I have a massive smile on my face because it's the greatest job in the world, and it's this thing that I love to do, and it's all I wanted to do since I was a kid. So I'm living my dream and absolutely loving it. And I still get that absolute rush of adrenaline and joy every time I walk in the paddock, or I get to do a grid walk or something like that. It's incredible. And you should appreciate it and take time to to realize how amazing it is. Like standing on a grid before a Grand Prix.
Yeah.
It's like being in the changing rooms before the World Cup final. It's mental. It's absolutely insane.
It's so good to hear that from you. I don't think anyone could do this job and show up and be miserable. I think you can miss home quite a lot.
Oh, totally.
And I think it can get probably quite grueling. Like we did 4 races this year.
we did 4.
We did 4 races. Yeah, Will did 24. But yeah, it is strange. Like I love being at home, but I think next year we just want to do. I think we'll do like 10 races.
You're young enough to be able to do it and like it not matter and the time zones.
I don't think everyone in that paddock though is out till like the times we've been out.
No,
we've
but
hit it quite hard.
And you should. That's what it's about. Enjoy it, make the most of it, take those opportunities.
That's how we get our guests.
And
if we didn't party, there's no way we would have had half the guests.
Oh, you
on
can
this
say
show that
anything you want after a few jugs.
Absolutely.
I remember standing in a club with David Croft, chatting absolute shite to him for an hour, and then right at the end, I was like, "Do you want to come on the pod?" He was like, "Yeah,
let's go." Yeah, but that's it's lovely, and there is that kind of Sunday night, let your hair down, go out for a few beers, and it's nice. And again, it's that traveling circus mentality. Everyone knows each other, and it's nice to just be able to let your hair down at the end of it. It's great.
You're back letting your hair down for Christmas now.
Yeah.
What does a Will Buxton Christmas look like?
Chilled.
What have you got planned?
Very, very chilled. Got some time with my daughter, which I'm super excited about. And then, family Christmas, just very relaxed. Not going to get up too much. Just going to sleep.
Eat and sleep.
That's the big thing. Eat, sleep, catch up. Because you get to the end of the season and your body catches up with you because you've spent the last 10 months bouncing between time zones and getting ill, but not letting it affect you and just kind of pushing through. And so normally the first day after you get home, And Brazil used to be the last race. And there was a flight that left at like midnight. And everyone would get on the flight, absolutely knackered, fly home, land Monday morning at a bitterly cold Heathrow. And everyone would get off the plane and look like death because the post-season cold had kicked in on the flight, and everybody stepped off that plane just minging, like absolutely disgusting. And that it's kind of, it's a bit different now because we finish it in, you know, lovely warm Abu Dhabi, and sometimes people will take a couple of days and just chill out in Dubai or something before they come home. But for the most part, as soon as the season ends and you down tools, body just goes, right, I'm checking out for 10 days. Like, we are done. Like, that's it. And especially now, because, you know, the calendar is so much. I started and it was 16 races a year.
When did you start?
I started my first year, I worked the end of 2002 at Formula One magazine. So my first full proper year was 2003.
And was that taking you to the races then?
Yeah, I do 2 or 3 races a year back then. I was a staff writer at Formula One magazine. So I'd get let out every now and then I do a lot of testing. I'd get sent to testing because back in those days, testing was unlimited. So now it's just like 3 days before the start of the season and everyone's on the same track at the same time. Back when I started, unlimited. So Ferrari would be testing at Fiorano or Mugello with 3 cars. And Williams and Toyota would be at Paul Ricard, and Jordan and Minardi and somebody else would be testing at Barcelona, and they'd do 2 days there, and then they'd go to another track and do 4 days there with like 3 or 4 drivers. And they were testing constantly, constant. So if you worked for a magazine, back when magazines were a thing.
And that's been a while now.
I know, it's been a while. One reporter would be out in France, one reporter would be in Italy, one reporter would be in Spain, going to all the testing days, getting the lap times down, comparing notes at the end, and then, you know, each month you'd have, or each week if it was Autosport, you'd have all the testing times, and you'd have to compare between tracks, different times of day, all this to try and create some picture of who might be competitive and who might not be competitive. And you wouldn't really know until the first race of the year. Now everybody's on the same track, same day, same time, same everything. You got more of an idea. But back then, like, just go and do whatever you wanted.
I like this though, because it's going hand in hand with the budget cap. It's bringing the teams closer together, which is perfect.
And with the number of races there are as well, you couldn't do unlimited testing.
Yeah,
not under a budget cap. It'd be impossible. They used to have separate test teams and race teams. So as soon as, you know, the race team would be in Monaco, and the test team had already set up at Paul Ricard. So you'd drive from Barcelona to Monaco, and you'd stop in at Ricard on the way for a 3-day test, and then end up in Monaco. And
that sounds like a little road trip, doesn't it? That sounds like something we would do.
That's what we're going to do next year.
Is that what we got? So I spent a year living in a camper van, driving from race to race.
Oh, you're gonna love what we're working on.
We got big plans.
What are you guys doing next year then?
Well, I'll let Jake explain.
Come on, what's the plan? What's the
plan? He really loves explaining.
I don't know whether we're 1,000,000% doing it yet, because there's conversations going on behind the scenes that I can't really say about. But ultimately, the plan is obviously to go to every race. But we plan on driving there, and we plan on having like our own. It will be like a TV show. We're turning this into like a proper show,
like a pit stop road trip. Top Gear-esque, but much better.
Like, we'll take a guest
Love
with
it.
us. We'll stop off and do a load of fucking cool stuff, whether it be someone from a pit
So,
crew
like, we would
driver.
love to be, like,
That's
driving
huge.
through France, and then we stop off as a caravan, we knock on the door, and it's you.
Yes.
We're like, Will, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Or or you're going through Europe, and you just happen upon my favourite restaurant that that's sitting in. It's like, come on in, boys. Let's have some dinner.
I would love that.
It'd be huge. That is honestly really fun. So I did that for a year, driving from race to race before the days of sat nav. So I had the big,
on an actual map.
big road.
How on
map
earth
books.
did anyone get by without a sat nav?
How do you actually use a map?
I used to have to write down the instructions for my mum, like turn off junction 17.
There used to be a website called Via Michelin where you would, basically it was early sat nav. So you would say, I'm going from here to here, and it would give you like directions.
Yeah.
So like the sat nav, but you'd have to print it out. So you're reading the directions as you're driving,
Dangerous.
And that's how I got around Europe. But it's lovely because you've got 10 days.
Yeah.
So, first race was in Imola. Okay, I know I've got 10 days to get to Barcelona. So where do I want to go in between? And I'd look at the route and go, oh, I can go to Pisa today and go and see the Leaning Tower.
That's
and
dreamy.
I can go and do this and that. And then you make a beautiful little European road trip going going all the way through. But it was easier in those days. There were like 12 European races and 4 or 5.
I was going to say 10 days in between a race. Like you're lucky.
10 days. Yeah. Not like 2 like now.
Fuck.
But it's so fun, and it's a wonderful way to do a season. You'll love it.
Yeah, for the American races, I want to just like fly into like New York, hire a car, and drive all the way across America.
Yeah, I mean, good luck. Good luck with that. That's a long way from New York.
I forget how big New York is. How big
America is. Yeah, that's the mad thing, because people are like, "Why has America got 3 races?" And you're like, "Okay, so the distance between each race is like wider than the whole continent of Europe."
I know.
It's insane. It's completely mad. But yeah, no, that's good. And you guys did Vegas. I haven't even been to Vegas since the race was announced. Was it good?
Mate,
you're going to Vegas next year.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, big party. But yeah, Vegas is well, we found out too, this year has been, for us, everything has been last minute, because obviously, as you can imagine, when we had you on, the season was about to start. We just launched the pod. No one was going to book us for anything mid-season. They had people sign for everything and people booked for races, and then out of nowhere, as soon as, if anything came in for us this year, it was because someone had dropped out or something had gone wrong with what had happened. And 2 days before, they're like, "Can you boys get to Vegas?" And we're like,
"Yep,
fuck yeah, let's
go."
Let me check my diary.
Yeah,
we're good.
Yeah,
and then out of nowhere, when we're in Vegas, actual F1, we're like, "Do you want to interview the boys?" And we were like, "Yeah, I'm real." We had Russell, Checo,
it was really put on last minute.
And the whole F1 team were unreal. That was the first time we'd ever actually worked with F1.
Yeah,
and
they're
a
good team, aren't they?
Which was cool. They put us on their YouTube. And then we went on their Instagram the other day, F1 Arcade.
Yeah, we've had 2 F1 features.
We're celebrating all of that shit. That's really cool.
But you have to, I mean, when you look back on this year, what you guys have achieved is incredible. And I love what you guys do. Like, I love the pod. That's why I wanted to come on right at the start, because your whole concept, your whole notion of, we don't understand a fucking thing. But what's great is, there are this sport can seem so large and so scary when you come at it as a newcomer, that to have people like you guys saying, right, we're completely blindsided by this as well. Let's learn together.
Yeah,
I love that. So that's why I leap to your defense, like on socials when you guys are getting crap.
What we were gonna say, man.
No, but because like what you guys are doing is brilliant, because there are millions of people who feel exactly the way that you guys do, which is, and what you're doing is saying, let's learn together. Let's go at this. And no, I'm not going to know who won the 1968 Formula 1 World Championship, but do you have to enjoy the sport?
Fangio, wasn't it?
Not 68.
That's it, you're getting a load of shit.
It could have looked really good.
Get out.
It could have looked good.
Get out. You've learned nothing. But look, I like watching football. I like the Premier League. Could I tell you who won the 1968 First Division as it won back then? No, I couldn't. Does that mean I don't have the right to enjoy football? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's how I compare it as well.
There's a lot of gatekeeping, which I hate. I hate that. It's like, you're not allowed to like our sport. Well, actually, yeah, you are. Everyone's allowed to like this sport, and everyone had a first race. Everyone.
Exactly.
Even the people who know every single thing about this sport had a first Grand Prix that they watched where they knew nothing. Nothing. But it comes with time, but it doesn't stop you from enjoying it. You can watch a Grand Prix and not have a clue who anyone is, where they're from, what their histories are, even where the bloody track is. It doesn't matter. You can watch a race and enjoy it, and that's the great thing about this game, about this sport.
It's why we wanted to get you on, because you were a first guest, and that really it put us on a platform to then get better guests. Like, really?
If we hadn't you couldn't have got much worse.
There's been a couple. But though, I've got to say that you gave us that kind of creditable kind of tag, which
credibility we needed
people
to be able to book.
Would come on, because every email that we wrote trying to get guests, it was like Will Buxton bold. Like, we had Will on.
We've had Will.
Yeah, that probably sort of stopped you getting guests. Yeah. Like, oh God, no.
There's a few people that turn around and were like, nah.
Yeah, maybe not. We were thinking about it, but now you said Will, definitely.
To be fair, literally the day after we'd filmed you, we went to the Wings for Life event and we were speaking to Christian and we were like, oh yeah, Christian, come on the pod. We just did Will Buxton, and the first thing Christian said was, oh, I bet he spoke a lot.
Really?
Yeah, he
did. Love it.
And we were dying.
Love it.
That's good. That's what we needed.
That's great.
To be fair, in what you said about like gatekeeping and that, what's made me feel great about it is when we have the drivers on. So like when we've had Oscar on, Dragovic on, all the people that are in the sport that people want to hear from loads, they finish the pod with us, and the first thing they say of us is like, that was the best thing we've ever done. Like, it was the most easy media I've ever done. They love it.
Yeah.
Like, they love coming on this show, which is why we have drivers messaging us wanting to come on now. Because it's laid back, they can talk about what they want to talk about, and for the first time, they're not getting grilled, or someone isn't trying to get them to say
they're not
something.
going to be grilled about what's the politics that's going on at the team. They're not going to be asked about, you know, the latest upgrade on their car, or tire deg, or any of that, or like, you know, glazing your brakes or whatever.
No.
You know, and I think just being able to talk to people about what they love and why they love it allows other people to listen to it and go, well, this is why I love it, and this is why I can love it as well. And just, you know, it's just freeing it up and opening it up. And there are so many new fans to the sport that to have that opportunity to listen and to learn and to be part of that journey all together, I think it's great. I love it. I love what you guys do. I think it's fantastic. Nice. I really do. I think
this year really showed how many new fans there were. There's been more new fans than I even imagined.
It's been crazy.
When we meet people out at these races, we talk to fans, they're like, oh yeah, I got into it through Drive Survive, just started watching. Loads of people say that.
But mate, we've had people say that we got into it because of what we do.
There's
not many of them, but there
amazing.
are some people, and even to go as far as to say, like, there's some people who message us and say, like, I've had the worst year of my life, and I might not even be here if I didn't listen to you guys at 6 a.m. on my route to work.
Yeah,
and that is like, that's when you really start to realise, like, this is like.
But that's
important.
It's the power of sport, isn't it? It's like music. It's something that transcends and speaks to people, and it's an escape for so many people from, you know, the normality of life, which isn't easy for a lot of people, and it creates that level of escapism, which is why I really dislike the whole gatekeeping thing. Is that if somebody finds something that they love and they enjoy and it brings something positive to their life, no one has the right to turn around and tell them you don't deserve to be a fan because you're new to this, or you don't understand, so you're not worthy. Fuck that, and fuck you if that's what you're coming out with. Because I'm sorry, but actually you're not a fan, because this isn't your thing to gatekeep. It's not yours exclusively. It's everyone's, you know, and we can all find love and passion and joy in this thing. And I don't understand anybody who loves this sport who would want to stop anyone else from loving this sport, because it's phenomenal.
I also think we've done a good job of paving a way into the sport.
If you do say so yourself.
Yeah, no, well, not necessarily a good job of the podcast, but I think we have done a good job of opening a door into the sport for other creators.
Totally.
Because there has never really been anyone that's gone in and done similar to what we've done, like who isn't backed by a massive brand or company or something, you know, like we've just gone on our own kind of in. There's so many creators around the world, YouTubers, people who make content, that probably wouldn't have got opportunities that I think we've opened the door.
But to be able to say, look, you don't have to know everything, and you don't have to bullshit your way into it by going, I know everything about the sport, listen to me, my opinion is valid because I know everything. Actually, you can create something where you say, I'm learning, let's go on this journey together. And that in many ways is you know, a huge positive, because people sniff out bullshit really, really fast, and you'd get sniffed out in a heartbeat, particularly 100. In this game, if you said that you knew what you were talking about and you didn't. So to just be honest and upfront and say, we want to learn.
Get away with everything.
Come with us. Come with us while we interview Nico Rosberg and go, so you're a world champion, are you? When did that happen? You know, like
Mika Heineken.
You're like, really?
Heineken, that's what I call it.
That's it. That's exactly it. And I love that. And that's what a lot of content creation can be and should be. You know, we just had a massive meeting at Formula One about, you know, what do we need to do with F1.com and with the, you know, with the YouTube channel and all this, and there is a perception of a level of knowledge that people will automatically have. But what if you don't? You know, should we be creating explainers for people who are new to the sport? And we were like, well, actually, yeah, we really should.
You guys have done that this year. You really have.
We try to, but it can be better, and it can be and should be more for people who are totally new to the sport. You know, you watch a race for the first time or qualifying or something, there's a purple sector. We just accept that people know what a purple sector is. But if it's your first time watching qualifying, none of those colours, you know, on the timing chart.
It's the gold one.
I still don't know what yellow means.
Anything,
the gold one.
Gold and the white. Yeah,
I still don't know what it means when it goes gold.
Yeah, so it's got to explain all those
what
things
does green
to people.
mean? Green means fastest so far?
Green means personal best. purple means best of all.
Yeah, purple means fastest out in that queue.
I can't believe we're still asking this 1 year in.
No, but what does yellow mean?
Yellow means
when it goes gold.
That you've
in the bar.
Gold.
There's 3.
Basically, the yellow and the white is determined because the lap that they were on is like the white times will come up, but then if they go around and so that it's not their personal best and it's not a best of all, it's just a sector time.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So that'll be in white. So the next lap through that they do, it'll come up as yellow to differentiate between this is a new lap.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if it was white,
Oh,
because
what's that beep?
It's the dishwasher.
Dishwasher's done.
dishwasher. Because otherwise, if it was white and then they went through for the new lap and then the next one came up was
Is
and
that
they
gonna
came through
keep
for the next lap and it was white, then your eye wouldn't be drawn to it, so you wouldn't know that it's on a new lap. And they
Okay.
haven't set a new lap, so it's
You are right though. There's thousands of fans and there's so much to take in. If you are watching for the first time, if you've just clicked on that channel and you're watching your first ever F1 race, it's going to be impossible to figure out what's going on.
So much to take on board. So, you know, we can do at Formula One, we can do so much better at explaining to new fans the things that they need to know. And as I said, there's a lot that we take for granted, having done this for however many decades, that everyone knows.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to what you guys do, it's wonderful because you're saying there is no such thing as a stupid question. You know, you can ask anything, because if you don't know the answer to it, it's not a stupid question. It's a genuine question, you know. And anybody that says it's a stupid question, well, that's only because you know the answer.
It's hilarious because we can ask a driver a question which will seem stupid and they won't know the answer. And that's when it really opens the door. People are watching and you're like, the driver doesn't know the
There
answer.
you
How
go.
are we meant to?
Yeah,
you know?
Well, I'm sure
exactly.
you knew, right? But did you know that when they change gear or when it's ready to change gear, they get a beep in their ear?
Yep.
We didn't know that.
Yeah, we were
We
fascinated.
thought it
when
was
we
just the
found out about
lines
that.
on the
Amazing,
wheel.
isn't it? Yeah.
No one has explained that to us. No one's mentioned it on TV. No one said anything about it ever.
It's great, isn't it? It's really,
It's
really big.
really
Well,
cool.
because their focus is so many different places. They've got yeah.
What
It's
do you think
incredible.
about, I want to quickly ask whilst you're here, what do you think about Ricciardo to Red Bull? Is that a media move? It seems very much like...
I don't get any of it.
No, I don't really either. That's why I wanted to know.
I don't understand how one of the highest regarded drivers, one of the best overtakers in the sport, multiple Grand Prix winner, ends up without a contract. I don't get it.
Well, he was offered 2.
Yeah, but when you turn those down, so here's the thing. He says, right, I'm taking a year out in 03 because there'll be better options in 04. What are your options? Because you ain't getting a seat at Mercedes. You're not going to get a race seat at Red Bull. You're not going to get a race seat at Ferrari. You're not going to Aston because that's all blocked up with Fernando and Lance. You definitely ain't going back to McLaren. You aren't going to Alpine because they didn't want you when the whole thing came out that you were a free agent. You've turned down Williams. You've turned down Haas. So you're hanging out for the Alfa Romeo drive. You're holding out for Audi on the off chance that you get that.
Yeah.
Really? Is that what you're holding out for? Like, I don't. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And you can say until you're blue in the face, oh yeah, but look at Nico Hülkenberg. Okay, great. He's got a Haas seat. Like, he's not going to win a world championship in the Haas.
No.
And I worry that Daniel Ricciardo is going to spend some of the best years of his career sat on the sidelines waiting for a chance that might not come, when he could be off racing NASCAR or he could be off racing IndyCar or doing something that... And I know why he's not racing is because he's lost the love for it and he's lost the sort of the passion that he felt for it.
Why?
Fine, well, go and race something that you enjoy.
Why has he lost that passion for it?
Because
I can't wrap because I don't know the guy.
At McLaren, it never meshed for him with the car. Like, he felt great with the team and everything, but it never quite meshed. And so when you keep getting, your backside handed to you by Lando, it just chips away at your confidence and bop to the point that he was lost, completely lost. And I get that he's lost the love for it, but then go and do something that brings that love back. Go and race in IndyCar. Go and race in that. Go and do something.
If Danny Rick went to NASCAR, they would have a whole Netflix series around following Danny Rick.
Yep.
And it would make NASCAR 10 times bigger than it is around the world.
I think outside of America it would be huge for NASCAR.
I don't know anything
Absolutely
about
massive.
NASCAR.
I think if he went to IndyCar, it would be huge for IndyCar, not just globally but also in America. Because IndyCar's not hitting the same figures that Formula One is stateside. But you take Daniel Ricciardo and put him in IndyCar, IndyCar's figures will suddenly rise.
Well, in the
Daniel would
US,
love it.
it's not bigger than F1. I thought it would be.
No. Formula One's bigger than IndyCar now.
Damn.
It's putting in more viewers. The drive to survive thing with it has been mad.
Yeah.
You know, when I broadcast Formula One in the States, we were getting 500,000 viewers. Now it's getting like 2 million.
Yeah,
Wow. Which is
I saw
crazy.
the stat actually.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. Yeah. And IndyCar's amazing. Like, it's great racing. They're all in pretty much the same car, just 2 engine manufacturers. And there's like anyone out of 18 drivers can win a race every weekend.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It's like Formula 2. Like, it's in terms of how competitive it is, it's amazing.
There have been F1 drivers that have gone to IndyCar already, hasn't there?
Marcus Ericsson, you know, went over. He was Charles Leclerc's teammate when they were at Alfa Romeo together. He went over, won the Indy 500 this year. Damn. You know, it's crazy. Racing for Chip Ganassi. You know, Daniel could have been his teammate because
he could have been somewhere winning.
Because Jimmy Johnson, who was like the greatest NASCAR driver of all time, went over, did a couple of seasons in IndyCar, didn't really work out for him, so he announced he was quitting around the same time that Daniel was left with nothing. Pick up the phone to Chip Ganassi, and Chip's like one of the most successful team bosses in IndyCar, one of the most successful team bosses stateside of all time. Mm-hmm. Hi Chip, would you like Daniel Ricciardo in your car? Yes, please. You know, Chip Ganassi's got a saying, which is, you know, I love winners, and that's Daniel.
Yeah,
I think he would have taken him in a heartbeat, and he wouldn't have needed to do the ovals. He could have just unroden street courses if he wanted to. That's perfectly within the realms of possibility, and I think it would have been great for him.
Is there no way that Red Bull have took him to replace Perez?
Nah,
because Perez goes contract ends next year.
Yeah, but I don't see it. I just don't see it.
No, neither do I really.
Imagine though.
Honestly, if it happens,
I thought before the season.
I'd be so happy for Daniel, but then you're like,
how does he fare with Max?
Well, he's just thrown away 5 years of his life by doing the 2 years at Renault, 2 years at McLaren, 1 year on the sidelines when he could have just stayed there originally.
Could have stayed, yeah.
He can't go back, but it would be so painful to look at all those missed opportunities. Is he going to beat Max in the same car? No. Could he have beaten Max earlier, 5 years ago, 4 years ago? They'd have been close. Yeah. He would have won a ton more races, probably had a shot at the championship, and then Max takes over and runs to it. But I think Daniel would be, a lot happier with where his career had gone if he'd stayed at Red Bull. Even with the writing being on the wall that Max was the new favourite.
We'll have to wait and see what happens with Daniel then.
We will.
Yes.
Will.
Yes.
Considering you know so much about Formula One.
Oh God.
Right. We want to get a few predictions from you.
Oh no,
for
not
next
again.
Year. No, yeah, because we did it at the start of this year. But
how many did I get wrong? All of them. Apart from Valtteri not winning a race.
You actually got some right. You did get some right, I think.
I can't even remember what we predicted.
No, you did a couple podium predictions for races and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And I think we text you. But so like,
oh yeah,
who's winning the constructors next year? And give us your top. I mean, this is hard because we don't even know what the cars are going to be like.
Okay. So you've learnt something very important this year, which is that this year has some bearing, but not all, on what will happen next year. Because we won't know a thing until those cars hit the track for testing. Who's pulled out something brilliant? Who's made a mistake like Mercedes did this year? You know, because if we're sitting here and this is 2021 rather than 2022 and you say, who's the favourite for the season? It's Mercedes.
Yeah.
And then we finish testing and you're like, well, we can forget about Mercedes because it's all going to be about Ferrari and Red Bull. But we could never have said that December 21. No way.
For sure.
And okay, everything next year is a development on what happened this year because the cars remain pretty much the same. There's a couple of new regs in terms of what they're doing with the floor, but nothing revolutionary.
Okay, so it makes it a bit tighter.
And essentially you can take it, finishing order from 22, roll that to 23, and that's your starting point. And then you need to see who's turned up with what for testing and how that will just, you know, it's very unlikely that an Alfa Romeo is suddenly going to be P1.
But it could happen.
Okay, so it could happen. All right, so that Bottas tattoo is still on the cards, maybe.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know.
You give us your who's going to win the constructors, who you think's going to actually which driver's going to win the championship, and then maybe like your top three.
It's very difficult to look past Red Bull at the moment. And I don't think the full effects of everything from the fallout from them going over the budget cap is going to be totally felt until 24.
Okay.
So I think 23 could still be a Red Bull year. But I think Mercedes will be closer. It remains to be seen what the turmoil at Ferrari does there.
Ferrari's a tough one.
It's a real tough one. If they can get... You know, look, Fred's not going to be able to affect anything about the car. The car is set in stone from 3/4 of the way through 2022 as to what it will be in 23, and there's a good foundation for that car. So theoretically, they should have a competitive car going into next year. If the power unit doesn't lunch itself, it's going to be it'll be good. What Fred needs to do is tighten the ship, get the strategy better, get proper decisions being made on the pit wall, regiment that pit crew better, and set up some form of a barrier between the team and the internal politics at Ferrari. And if he can do that in the short term and really solidify his position at the helm of the team, then Ferrari could be super competitive next year. And I think everyone's hoping that they will be.
Yep.
The big question is, can McLaren or Alpine take a step up and make it a four-way fight? And that's the hard part.
That would be epic.
That would be great.
I would love a four-way.
I'd love it.
Everyone.
I mean, it's been close
that.
this year anyway, but would
everyone
love that.
there's still that little gap, you know, and if that can be closed up and those teams can take that step up, and that's what happened with the new set of regulations. You rebuild the ceiling that everyone's going towards, and ultimately the top teams will get closer and closer, and the closer you get to the ceiling, the smaller the gap, the smaller the steps are that you can make to increase your performance as you get closer and closer to the ceiling. Whereas the teams that are further down can keep making those big jumps until ultimately everyone is pushed up to within this finite point at the top where it gets more and more and more and more and more competitive, and the field goes like that. So what you hope is that year on year everybody just gets closer together
and closer.
And so that's the hope for next year.
So you think Red Bull have probably got the championship again?
Yeah,
potentially.
I think. Do you know what? One interesting storyline for next year is going to be Fernando and Aston Martin.
Do you think?
Yeah.
They got the new factory coming, or
just
the new
in
wind
terms of how many races it takes until the whole thing blows up. Do you know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean between the two?
Between the two.
Okay.
Yeah. It could be. It's yeah.
And who's winning that argument? Because I would
nobody.
say
It's gonna.
Well, Stroll has a bit of power.
There's the potential for there to be real horns.
Fucking nuclear explosion.
Yeah. Like, give it 5 races.
It's like
and the
two
whole
stars
thing,
colliding.
Yeah, like a supernova or whatever. Yeah, you know, creating a black hole as you know this star sort of implodes. It's, you know, Fernando doesn't have much tolerance for failure, and he wants things done in a specific way, which is Fernando's way. And then you've got, obviously, Lawrence that wants things done his way, and it'll be very interesting to see how those two very strong characters meld or don't meld at Aston Martin. And I think there are quite a few people that are just waiting for the point at which it explodes.
We'll hang around Aston Martin.
It's going to be like oil and water in it, really. I don't think they're going to mix, but it will make for an exciting year. You want to make my prediction?
Yeah, give us your 3, because, you know, Will's got to give an expert opinion, so he needs to see the cars and test them.
Yeah,
so we can't push out.
What's your prediction? I haven't really made a prediction yet.
No, I'll give you mine first. It's tough. It is tough, really. I think Red Bull will still be there, to be honest. But I do think Mercedes could pip Ferrari. I think Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari. For my top 3, I think Max has probably got the championship again.
Yeah.
Unless Leclerc can actually focus a bit more and not make as many mistakes. I'm really trying here.
Yeah, no.
Thank you. But yeah, I think Max has got it. And I think, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari.
Cool.
Okay, that's not bad.
And Alonso in 4th.
I think Red Bull as well, but I don't think they'll win the Constructors.
You think Mercedes?
I think it will go like Red Bull, Mercedes, and I think Mercedes would win the Constructors, but I think Max will win.
Max will win the drivers, Mercedes will
win the Constructors.
Because you've got George and Lewis, both consistent.
But then I think we may even see McLaren ahead of Ferrari.
Ooh. Well, but this is the thing with the turmoil at Ferrari. It could happen, but then you've got turmoil at McLaren.
You know, like how we're saying every team has a budget cap. McLaren have the money to spend the budget cap.
Like, they'd be up at the budget.
That's what I mean. So they've got the money to produce a car. They've got 2 of the best young drivers. You know, I think they're going to be able to do something.
Yeah, you've got Oscar, who is going to win. We asked him, we said, are you going to play it safe next year? He said no, I'm fucking going balls to the wall. I'm going to try and win races.
We've got to trust our guests.
So that's the huge thing, isn't it? You've got Lando, who's one of the highest regarded drivers in the sport at the moment, probably top 3 driver of 2022. He's not going to want the kid showing him up, but the kid's going to be racing to show him up. And there's going to be no love loss between those two. George and Lewis, put them in a competitive car. How long until that turn sour.
Oh, it's getting exciting. I can't wait.
You've got again the dynamic at Ferrari. Charles has raced for Fred in junior categories. He raced for him at Alfa Romeo. How much will that friendship align Fred and potentially the team towards Charles and not towards Carlos? Will that happy nature continue at Ferrari? How long until Checo completely checks out at Red Bull, given what happened at the end of the season? Max and Checo, there's a little bit of needle between them there. Gasly and Ocon at Alpine, they could make a huge step forwards Alpine, but if those drivers don't get on, and we know they don't like each other very much, that's potentially explosive. Aston Martin make a competitive leap forward, and suddenly it blows up between Fernando and Lawrence. What haven't we looked at yet?
You've been doing Drive to Survive way too much.
Honestly, Alfa Romeo at the moment looks like the steady ship in the storm. It's the one team that might just be like kind of nice and calm. And Nyck de Vries comes through to take a shock win in the AlphaTauri.
Imagine
AlphaTauri win the championship.
I'll make a prediction right now that I reckon there'll be a mid-season driver swap.
Oh,
like 100%. I don't know where, but I reckon it's going to happen.
As Fernando marches off into the sunset.
Someone's leaving mid-season, without a doubt.
And Felipe Drugovich gets the call up.
Would love that. Felipe.
They would have 2 F1 drivers on our leaderboard.
There you go. There you go.
Well, to be fair, we're going to have another one. We can't say who yet. Remember?
What, start of next year?
Yeah, remember?
Yeah, we will, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
A few more coming.
And the guy that was meant to be on this week as well.
Oh, yeah.
Any clues?
Cool. Yeah.
There's a camera there.
Yeah. Shit, you're mouthing it. You can see it on camera.
Put something over you.
Yeah, exactly. Put a big black box.
I would love to tell the people listen, we're just not allowed.
They can wait.
Very cool.
Well, there we go then. That's the end of the finale Pitstop Christmas.
That is the end of the Christmas episode. End of
Unless you
season
do want to fire out a top 3. Or if you want to wait till then.
I think any combination of Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, it's going to be huge fun. I love testing. I love going to the test and seeing what everyone's brought and just reading people's body language, because you can't read anything in the times. All you can do is watch the drivers and look at, are they happy? Are their shoulders slumped forward, or are they looking confident? Are they walking around with a stride in their step, or are they kind of shuffling around the paddock? And within a day who's, king of the hill, who's feeling really confident going into the year, and who's thinking it's going to be a really tough season. And that's what I love about testing. I absolutely love it. And then we get to the first race and we're all proved completely wrong. Yeah. I love that.
Great.
So you're going to be out for Bahrain testing?
Yeah, I'll be out in Bahrain for testing.
We might try and get there somehow.
Honestly, it's such fun. You can go and walk trackside and watch the cars and see how they're reacting by the side of the track. It's much more chilled out. It's much easier, and the cars are banging around all day. So it's really fun. Just an opportunity to talk to people, figure out what's actually going on, and how people are genuinely feeling. It's really good.
Great, Will, man, it's been an honour.
Oh, guys, don't be silly.
Not even just today, just to meet you. We spoke about it. Like you defending us on Twitter and shit, and just being a good bloke and welcoming us with open arms, which a lot of people in F1 have done. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you from the beginning.
This is not a joke to us now. I guess this is looking like it's going to be our career. So you're like the guy. Glad. You're like the guy in the office who's like, yes, boys.
Guys, I'm so glad. Honestly, we had this chat 10 months ago, and I could tell how much you loved the sport already and how much you wanted to just bring to it and open it up. So I've loved following you this year, and I can't wait to follow you for many years to come, because I love what you guys do, and just your presence in the paddock is a big, shining, bouncy ball of joy and happiness. So I love it, boys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Mate, thank you so much, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys.
And
Merry
people
Christmas.
of Pitstop, that is the end of season 1. Fab and Jake are now taking a break. We'll be back in early Jan. We have uploaded all year, 2 or 3 episodes a week. We need a break.
This is episode 89. Didn't manage to quite crack 100, but we'll get there.
There is a big movie coming out on our YouTube of everything filmed behind the scenes. We're going to stop these cameras now, and we'll be back in early Jan. Thank you for the best year of our lives, and we will see you beginning of Jan.
Yeah, and the Discord is coming soon.
Yeah,
not sure when, but it's coming soon.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Will, thank you so much. Been a pleasure.
Thanks, mate.
See you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that's the end of season 1.
Boys, congratulations.
Thanks, brother.
Really, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Really mean
Well
it.
done. No.
It's been a crazy year, I must admit. Wasn't sure what to expect from it at all, but it's actually, mate, it's exceeded my
You
expectations.
smashed, but that's because you smashed it. You know, you gave it everything. As with everything in life, you know, you get out of it what you put in.